Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Launchpad Virtual Summit. I'm Erica Rollins, Director of Marketing here at CallTrackingMetrics, and we are really excited to share 3 days full of content designed to help you grow your business and delight your customers in 2022 and beyond. And if you haven't signed up for days 2 or 3 yet, there's still time to save your seat. Okay, so today we want to kick things off with a conversation with Laure and Todd Fisher, co-founders of CallTrackingMetrics. Thank you both for joining us today.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So our goal today is really just to spend a little bit of time with you and understand how your entrepreneurial journey made, CallTrackingMetrics so successful and, still able to grow across the last year and a half, and some of the things that you've learned and insights that you want to share for, other businesses for 2022 and beyond. So let's go ahead and get started. So first I want to kind of take a look back, right? So looking back, why do you think that CallTrackingMetrics was able to pivot so successfully, at the start of the pandemic? And is there anything that you would have done differently?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I think that one of the things that really helped us be successful during the pandemic was that leading up to the pandemic, we had started to already transition our software to focus more on the agent experience. Even thinking about home agents. And so it became very natural for us when, March 15th, around that time, when we all picked up our bags and left and thought we'd see each other again in 2 weeks, but actually, didn't. We did virtually. So it was very easy for us then to have our whole team take their laptops home and just continue to do their work. And I think that it pushed us, right? So, we had a surge of customers that wanted to go off-site. Many customers that, were planning to, deploy software that rapidly had to figure it out, right? And so our team, was able to react quickly and still support them because we were already familiarized with our software. We were able to support those new customers that wanted to go offline or out of the office. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that, the technology, the ideas of the technology were there. Building it into a web browser meant that, whether you were working at a workstation in your office or working at a home computer, you could transport your communication system without much more than just logging in. So that was, I think, pretty effective. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Laure?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think the technology was a big piece of it, both for our team and for our customers. I think the other part of it was our culture. I think the transition that we went through, all working remote, really either kind of showcased the great and the not great things about each company's culture, right? It exacerbated what worked well and what didn't. And so for us, what really stood out was our purpose-driven culture, right? When we go out and talk to customers about what stands out to them about our team, there's this altruism and they really want to help our customers. And so that immediately kicked in. And we saw our team just jumping in and helping these businesses who were going through this transformation that, maybe would ordinarily take 6 months to go through, that they needed to go through in a week. And do it very quickly and not miss a beat and try to keep up with their own customers, right? So I think our team, our culture, the values that we've always had actually really shone during that time. And certainly we, like every company, were figuring out all sorts of communication challenges. We did have the benefit of having our own software that we used, and that if we needed something, we could deploy it that day and it would help all of our customers as well. So I think that was another big piece of it. In terms of what we might have done differently, hindsight's 2020 with this, but I think that we could have been even more aggressive promoting what we were doing for our customers to the rest of the world. Our first priorities were making sure our customers were taken care of, our team was taken care of, and we were very focused on that. And I think that we could have been even more aggressive about, marketing these benefits during the pandemic. We certainly got there, but we were immediately in kind of firefighting mode, just trying to help everybody get up and running and get where they needed to be for their business to survive.
Yeah. And that makes sense, right? And I think a lot of businesses were you're facing the same challenge where they're trying to balance that level of empathy with their customers and their users and support them, and as well as their internal teams. But also, I mean, they're still trying to grow a business and generate revenue, simultaneously. So nothing, that's probably totally unique, right, to us. But everybody was going through the same thing. So Todd, I'm curious too. We were talking a little bit about the technology. What trends, in 2021 have you noticed in the call tracking and conversation intelligence industries, and do you think that those are going to continue in 2022?
Yeah, I think that we saw advertising budgets continue to grow. So we saw an increase in digital spend, both because of the competitive nature of it. I think more people, getting into the digital space, right? Obviously, e-commerce has exploded during this period, and that trend doesn't seem like it's going to stop anytime soon, which consequently means that the digital ad spend has also grown quite a bit, which we see that as emphasis on you need to make sure that you're maximizing those dollars spent. So you really need to make sure you understand which interactions with which ads are leading to meaningful revenue generating outcomes, right? Because that's going to inform you how to allocate those dollars more effectively. We are also seeing an increase in, I'd say it's kind of harder for me to explain. It's automation, really. We're seeing an increase in the need to automate. You could kind of say broadly, right, across all sectors, you're seeing automation, right, being necessary because there's a labor shortage. But when you think about it in the digital space, what does that labor shortage kind of mean? It means that we need more ways to automate the simple things that the minutia that bogs us down. From our sales team having to manually score a call to a customer service agent needing to look up your account, right? Plenty of these manual things that are small add up over the course of a day and could equal 1, 2, 3 conversations that have meaningful value, right? So when we think about ways to automate, we think about what are the sort of journal tasks that a user on our system is doing, and how can we help them not have to do those things. So scoring, using artificial intelligence in ways to automate that scoring, I think is something we're seeing a lot of. We're seeing it both in assistive tools where we're able to provide assistance to an agent that might be having trouble with a customer, or in ways of understanding the outcome of a conversation so that we could potentially automate the scoring and conversion tracking during those conversations. What else? So 2022, I expect to see a lot more of that, and those themes kind of continue to resonate and grow and become more refined. A lot of it is, every year is sort of a refinement on the previous year. Occasionally there's a breakthrough. I think that, I think we're going to see a lot more video conferencing. And, I think it's clear that video conferencing became ubiquitous in 2020 and 2021. Like, it just became standard. I would say every business conversation now is pretty much going to be guaranteed to be over a video of some sort. And I suspect we're going to see a growth in the B2C space of video, where we'll see more interactions with customers, and it'll be video-based conversations, not just voice-based conversations. And of course, SMS has been, I'd say, almost exponentially growing. And we're going to just see a continued growth and surge in utilization of SMS. It's kind of there's less friction there, I think, in the communication, and I think it provides more value, with less friction, in a timely way, right? I think my dentist, for example, I just responded to a text message C for confirm, as in I'm going to be going to the appointment tomorrow. So, use cases like that, I think we're seeing a lot more of, and it's just becoming sort of expected, not necessarily a surprise.
Sure. So these new emerging channels, obviously some of them are new, but also just better leveraging of these existing tools. Businesses are really starting to rely on them for automation, and I think you nailed it with these trying to simulate in-person experiences and making those better, B2B and certainly B2C as well.
Yes.
So
I think privacy also is going to continue to be a big issue next year.
Oh, yeah.
Right? As you think about how to leverage your own data with your first-party data.
Absolutely. You're right. I think that, we're seeing the trend already. What was it? Ohio was mentioning a privacy law, but we're seeing them across the board. And so what that really means is, we want to be focused on the value to the customer, and the data is about how to serve the customer. Not you don't want there to be a negative use for that data. You want it to be a positive thing. I love the example of you go under the tunnel. You're talking to somebody on the phone, and call drops. Mind you, it took you 20 minutes on a queue to get a hold of the person, and now you drove under the tunnel and you disconnected. How delightful would it be if you call them back and you get connected to the same agent automatically, right? But that does require a level of tracking, right, to know that you were talking to that agent, so that when you call back after a certain amount of time, that connection is still there, right? So I think there's always good, but there's always ways to exploit. So what we want to do is help provide good ways to make use of that data in meaningful and useful ways to make the world a little bit better.
So we've also seen a huge shift in leadership tactics. And CEOs and business leaders faced a lot of new challenges. Luckily, 2022 is a new year and an opportunity for a fresh start. So what would you say are some new strategies that leaders will need to adopt in 2022 as they, to help them lead with confidence?
I think one of the big things is agility, right? And so, we think about the past year and a half, there was a lot of change. We all kind of got comfortable with change and this kind of constant state of, what's going to happen tomorrow, and being very nimble and adaptive. I know our team, we were on our toes every day for a year, right? And so how do we leverage and continue what was really good about that, right? And to continue that pace of change, that openness to think about things in a different way, and just keep that elevated kind of awareness and kind of tolerance for change. I know it's something that I think a lot about in our organization is how do we keep that same momentum going even as the stuff around us might start to calm down, right? Because there was so much really good that came from it. And Todd talked earlier about the pace of innovation in our software. There was, I talked about our team and how they were responding to customers. How do you keep that same energy going, right? Even when things around us are getting in a less chaotic state. So I think that's one thing, is how do you keep that level of agility in the organization? The other thing is to think about, labor, right, and the people and the skills in your company. You've got different kind of aspects of this. One is thinking about how do you make sure you take care of the people that you have, right? Because it's very hard to find good, talented people right now. And so how do you make sure that you are not only, supporting them in a way where they feel very fulfilled working for your organization, but also you're continuing to develop their skills. Somebody that you might be hiring who is, working in your call center right now, could they be an engineer one day? And how could you as an organization support that path? Because it's very hard to go out and find a new engineer. So why not nurture, the great people that you already have? So I know we are thinking a lot about professional development in an organization, and even in a company like ours that might seem small to be kind of even thinking about, having a department that focuses on professional development. We've determined as a leadership team it's a really high priority for us to make sure that we're developing the people that we have and keeping them engaged, right, and excited about their path here. The other part of the labor market as it is right now is thinking about how do you use technology to address those labor shortages, right? And our software kind of naturally helps with this in a lot of ways, and helps to perhaps create efficiencies and allow a small business that might not be able to do something really complicated on their own without having to go out and hire a developer. They can do those things using a piece of software like ours. And there's lots of examples, like that in the world. But I'm really excited about the things that we can do for small companies, and we can have them do very cool, sophisticated things just with a few clicks of a button using software like ours.
Yeah. I think, yeah, Laura. I mean, I think your vision on this of goes back to thinking about culture so early on. In the genesis of our company, we were very small when you started saying, "Hey, let's figure out what our core values are." So it speaks to your vision that the growth of the company is going to continue, right? I think that speaking about automation and thinking about agility with automation, I think is a key thing here, right? With needing to maximize the ability of your team to do more, right, with less. Automation is the answer. So how do we make sure that those tools can be flexible so that they can change too, right? I think that as you were talking, I was thinking, hey, it's one thing to say, hey, we've created a process in our organization that works. But as we grow, as we expand, in the pandemic, right, we saw a lot of businesses strain under the increased demand. How do you make sure that you're positioned your processes so that they can scale, right? So you want to make sure that whatever tools you start to adopt, right, that they can expand and grow with you and handle the excess capacity or the increase in demand, right? And so, I think that's really interesting.
Okay, so Laure, kind of along the same theme, company culture and customer success have both been a really hot topic due to remote work and that shift. So what should business leaders be doing to keep these top of mind?
So I think, one of the things that we've been spending a lot of time thinking about here, and I think this applies to a lot of companies, is find the why, right, in your company, right? Why do your employees get excited about what they do, with your organization? Why should your customers be excited about working with you? Find that higher level, right? Kind of keep asking, well, why? Asking that next level of, why is call tracking, solving a huge problem for people? Well, why are you excited to come into work every day? What is it? I know here in our company, we spent a lot of time across this year kind of relooking at our mission and our values. And one of the things that was really interesting coming out of the pandemic is that our team looked at our mission with a different set of eyes after having supported organizations through very kind of dire situations when we were in the height of the pandemic. So when we relooked at our mission, it was very clear that we were missing that higher level of we're making the world a better place from what we do. And I think 2 years ago, we wouldn't have necessarily come to that same conclusion. And I think every company can do that. No matter what it is that you're providing, there's a higher level. There's something that you're doing that is helping people, that's helping something in the world, and find that higher level purpose, because it's going to help you not only in developing your own mission and your own culture internally, but also increasingly that's what customers are looking for. They're looking for purpose-driven companies. They want to see something in a company that makes them excited about working with that company and being associated with that company. So for us, at our culture, when we really thought about that why, there were two things really important for our team. There was working with each other every day. That is really a big part of why our team gets up every morning and is excited to come work here, is each other, right? They don't want to let the person down next to them. They're inspired by the person that works next to them. And then our customers, right? The work that we're doing for our customers to help them do really, really important things. We say here, we are working to make the world a little bit of a better place. And again, I don't know that we would have said that 2 years ago and really kind of believed it, but we see it now. So I think that's really important. It plays into both, again, internally as you think about working with your teams and then also with customers. The other thing, you mentioned, remote work and hybrid. As we went through that kind of, that internal kind of exploration of what makes us us, we came to the conclusion, again, that working with each other is really important to our culture. So we needed to think about how do we really leverage our time together and remotely to make sure that we're able to work with each other in a productive way. And I think that, our employees probably thought we were crazy for doing this earlier this year, but we actually invested in a very large office space that allows us all to be on one floor. And it was hard to find a place that was one floor, right, where that was big enough, because one of the things that we found is that even separating ourselves by floors was really hampering our ability to have those micro kind of encounters with each other where we can bump into each other and talk about, something that relates to somebody's career path or some kind of professional development moment or just some kind of interesting exchange of information in the hallway. So we realized that was really, really important to us. And if we were going to have people back in the office, that's what it needed to be about. It needed to be about those encounters and those serendipitous kind of moments that really make our culture us. I think there, as we think about hybrid, there's a lot to think about also in terms of how we manage a hybrid workforce. It is not, I think we underestimate how hard it can be from a management perspective to manage a hybrid team. It's how do you not forget about your person that's on the Zoom in the meeting, right? How do you deliver a performance review over Zoom, right? Or, over the phone? There are things that are very different. And so we need to think about how to arm and train and support our managers in a way where they are effective in managing a hybrid team. Then there's technology that can obviously help with that, but a lot of it is just around professional development and thinking about, I've been reading a lot about the servant leader, and I think it's a very interesting concept and I think coming out of the pandemic, we had this empathy. I think it was something else that came out of the pandemic is this empathy for each other, right? And I know we especially felt that with our team. We just wanted to help each other. Everybody was going through a very difficult time, and I think how do we keep that, right? How do we have empathetic leaders who are strong leaders, right? Who are managing towards outcomes, but there's this empathy in their approach, and it's an interesting way to think about being a manager, and I think it's something we've been working on a lot here at CTM.
And the good news too is that businesses again are all sort of facing similar challenges and trying to figure out the balance, right? The remote work and this kind of hybrid environment. And so I think what's nice is we can all use this opportunity to learn from each other, what's working in practice and what's not.
Yeah. I think from my perspective on it, my experience was, the beginning of the pandemic, I felt we had hyper productivity because everyone was remote. Because we left with sort of the baseline for what to focus on, right? So we all kind of were together, and then it was like, okay, now go and work remotely, and it was hyper productive. But then I felt like as we went further into the remote space, there was a drifting of the focus, right? And it started to diffuse, right? Because we sort of lost that center. And so that's where I think the option of having a sort of a hybrid environment where we're coming back and we're refocusing and recentering ourselves, but then executing in a remote way, I think is potentially a new way of thinking about work, right? That could yield, to many of your points, I think could yield even better balance of productivity and quality, right?
Okay, so taking it back to our industry, Todd, in particular, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for the call tracking and conversation intelligence space? And what do you think that people should be talking about that they aren't already?
Great. I think it's the interconnection between the marketing and sales teams and how they work together. Because it's one thing to have great analytics, it's one thing to have a great sales team, but if you can connect them together, you can get a much better experience for your business, right? So I think the topic of how does your sales team and your marketing team work together, I think is a very, very important topic. I mean, I think, Laure, you always mention how, those two teams, there's always a tension, right? But I think that that's where maybe software can really benefit the organization because, we had mentioned earlier automation, make it less frictionful for the sales team to report back to the marketing team. Because ultimately, right, the marketing team is looking for ways to increase good quality leads to that sales team, right? And so any feedback they can get is obviously going to improve that relationship, right? So, I think that as we look at our software and our space and the call tracking in general, we see it more of a software tool that is here to facilitate kind of that internal communications process between your sales and your marketing team. So there's a lot that goes into that, I think. There's baseline. We're talking about kind of qualifying the call, right? Was it a good call? Was it a bad call? Perhaps dispositioning it in a way that would inform the marketing team whether or not their targeting was correct, right? And that's where I think, as we get into talking about conversational intelligence, right, that's where you can start to see how this starts to get automated, right? We can start to understand that, the sales agent doesn't need to do the classification job at the end of the call, right? They don't need to do quite as much bookkeeping, which I had mentioned earlier, and I think that's a big win for the sales and the marketing teams. There's also some things like first-party cookies that we want to make sure we're thinking about, especially moving into the new year. Given the fact that there's a lot more sort of, or there's a lot less access to third-party data, which isn't a bad thing, right? That'll really affect the sort of the remarketing capabilities. But I think that with first-party data, there's so much you can still do that focusing on first-party data, I think, is a good strategy for the coming year.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. And while the retirement of the third-party cookies and first-party data is not a new topic,
right.
I think the focus should be on starting to invest in those tools that are going to allow you to leverage that first-party data to enhance the customer experience, like you talked about earlier, Laure. But also the benefit is that by having that data centralized, in a tool that teams share, that's naturally going to also help with that alignment, that sales and marketing alignment.
That's right.
So looking ahead, what are some of the things that consumers are looking for in 2022 and that businesses should be prepared to address?
I think keeping up with the pace of customer adaptation. So across the past 2 years, there was so much innovation in terms of how to make things easier for customers, how to keep them safe, how to keep them, how to allow them to do things that they maybe couldn't do because of the pandemic. There was this just rapid pace of innovation in just about every industry. So I think how do you keep that up? Because customers are not going to stop. They're going to be looking for things to continue to become easier and easier and easier. And so it's going to become something you have to do to stay competitive. The other part of that is, I think, thinking about how do you connect your business and what you're offering to what the customer's kind of vision for themselves is, this kind of concept of their self-actualization, right? What are they trying to do? And getting into their headspace a little bit to understand, how does what I'm doing help solve a problem for them? I know our marketing team and us here at CallTrackingMetrics have been thinking a lot about how do we help our customers be a hero? And I think every company needs to be thinking about that, because there's a way that you could connect what you're doing to solve some problem that can make a customer feel really good about themselves. And so I think you need to think about what you're doing at that level, not just making it easy, not just keeping the customer safe, but connecting to some higher level purpose. I think it's really important.
Like keeping it easier is a sort of an outcome, right, of the effort of making the customer a hero, right? Like that's a result, right? So I think one of the things you were saying, I think, is really about personalization, right? How do we give better personalized experiences, which implies a level of customization. It implies a level of involvement. It goes back to first-party data, right, and knowing who the customer is, right, to provide those experiences. So I think you're right, Laure. I think that's going to be a big part of 2022, and I look forward to working with our customers and our team to make it happen.
Yeah, I think another thing is the fact that everyone is always shopping. They're shopping while they're on a Zoom call.
That's true.
They're shopping on Instagram, and they don't even know they're shopping. It used to be you used to make a list and you went out and shopped, right? You purposefully shop.
Well, now we just push by, right?
Well, but even if you don't know you're shopping for something, you are. There's like this part of our brain that is always kind of seeing an ad or being presented with something where it's this shopping experience, this passive shopping experience. So, as marketers, right? Many of our customers are marketers. We have to think about how do you adapt to that, and how do you think about marketing to that segment while also making sure that you're marketing to the people who are ready to buy something. And I think it again ties back to that purpose-driven, kind of communication and that marketing of, while somebody's just kind of like on Instagram looking at a picture, what would they see about your company that would be interesting to them when they're not actually thinking about buying something? And I think a lot of times that's something about your values as a company. It's something that you're doing to make them the hero. It's some higher level, kind of value proposition that you're providing that's not necessarily tactical. So you kind of have to start at the top there. So I think it all kind of circles back to needing to figure out the why. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? How does it make the customer the hero? How does it make your employees the hero? I think that becomes really important in this passive shopping environment.
Yeah, and you're right. There's this thing about brand awareness versus brand perception, and data suggests that up to 95% of buyers aren't actually in market. So you want to make sure that you stay top of mind so that when they are in market, it's a recall for them, right? And they immediately say, oh yes, I remember that brand. And it's, I think, a lot of what you're getting to. And I think the other expectation is that buyers want us to meet them where they are, using the messaging channels and the platforms where they already are, so that it's not an imposition for them. So we have to make sure that we're meeting them on the channels and with the right messaging at the right time, and also protecting their privacy. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of moving pieces, but I think you've hit all of those for sure. Okay, so Todd and Laure, that wraps it up. Thank you again for joining us today. This was a great conversation, and I know it added a lot of value for our attendees. We appreciate you taking the time out, and thank you so much.
Thank
Excellent.
you. Yes. Looking forward to the next 3 days.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun.
Yeah. And to all of our attendees, welcome again to the Launchpad Summit, and we look forward to seeing you across the next 3 days. Bye, everyone.